Welcome to the SaaS AdLab podcast, where we bring you the stories of SaaS founders, entrepreneurs, and CEOs. My name is Luis. I'm the owner and founder of Fantom agency, a digital marketing agency specializing in scaling SaaS companies. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Amar. He's the founder and CEO of ZenMaid. Thank you so much for being on here today. It's a pleasure having you. And I know I've seen you around on Facebook groups and things like that, and just following you to learn a little bit more about ZenMaid, what you've been up to. And Amar was really kind to provide anyone that's listening or watching to a code of 10% off on the plan. So if you want to use that, if you think it's right for you, go ahead and do it. So now the code is going to be Fantom, all caps. So Amar, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and where did you grow up and how this whole ZenMaid thing came to be?
Yeah, definitely. Just to keep it short, I ran my own maid service. I came across a series of blog posts online, 7, 8 years ago on how to start your own local services business. And it was more focused on maid services, but it was talking a little bit more like more generally or whatever. And so me and a friend saw that post around the same time, and our skill sets matched up, and we started our own maid service. And essentially during the year that we were running that, he built out our website, and then our website was also sort of like our CRM and our scheduling, and he just sort of built that out along the way to fit our very specific needs with how we ran the maid service. And so fast forward, 14 months later, that was like a side project for us. We were both working day jobs. I'd moved out of the area for my day job. I moved back up to the Bay Area near San Francisco. And one of my other friends approached me and was like, hey, I think that we should build a software so that other maid services can sort of do what you and Darren were doing. And we actually were trying to focus on other industries first, and then ended up coming back to SaaS because of back to maid services because of my experience there. And so yeah, that was 6 years ago at this point, and we've been building ZenMaid ever since.
Cool. So it's definitely been some time since you first started ZenMaid. And we've had, I've had people on here that are just starting off, people that have been in business for 15 years. And so there's a big range of, expertise, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
What's been one of the most successful things you've done as far as marketing goes to really, be able to maintain this thing to get it to 6 years and it's still going strong?
Definitely. So we've always relied, I think we've got sort of I don't know about an interesting funnel, but I personally love marketing. That part of the reason that I started ZenMaid was because my day job, I couldn't get anything outside of sales, and I'd realized that I really enjoyed marketing. And so this was sort of like an avenue for me to explore that. So we try all sorts of different things. We've got a lot of very good email marketing. And then for 6 years now, we've always relied on paid ads. And then paid ads are essentially where we consistently get new traffic and new customers. But then we've done a lot on the content marketing side as well. I'm hesitant to rely on content for new traffic, right? That I prefer the paid ads to get us constant exposure, and then the content to be more like nurture type stuff. And sometimes it brings us new leads as well.
That's a good point to bring on, because I've had a conversation with many people regarding advertising, obviously, and a lot of the times they're hesitant to start early, like running paid ads, because it's they're not necessarily have a product market fit. They don't know who they're targeting. Do you think that understanding that your perfect customer was the maid services, is that what made it so easy to kind of kickstart with paid advertising?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we have some competition that are maid service specific softwares, but honestly, most of them appear to be like solopreneurs or solo developers that have built a product that a couple of maid services pay them for. They don't really seem to be treating them like a company, so most of them don't run paid ads. And then our bigger competitors serve all sorts of service industries. And so we definitely were able to get a nice sort of boost in the beginning, and we continue to get that to this day by just being so specific with our ads.
Right. So definitely, there's a saying out there that says a niche gets you rich. So yeah. I think it's definitely true. It definitely helps you understand more of who you're targeting, like what are their needs, and you don't have to be thinking, oh, like what does the other person need or something like that. So that's good. Now, I did do a little bit of research to like kind of understand what kind of marketing you were running, right? Like, what's your approach to paid advertising? Because you could do a very direct response, campaign where we're our CRM tool for maid services, right? Or something more like what you're doing, which is really, really interesting. And it's something that you're seeing in a lot more industries nowadays, I think. But I'd love to get your thoughts around it. So tell me a little bit more about the Maid Service Success Summit and how the idea came to be, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone watching that's been in the internet marketing circles or the digital marketing circles for a couple of years probably remember that summits were hot for a bit there, maybe a couple of years ago. And what I've found is that because I'm working with an older industry, these trends tend to be far ahead, so that I can look at what's sort of going on in like digital marketing today that a lot of the SaaS companies, like SaaS companies, are trying. And in a couple of years, I know that I'll be able to like do that for my audience. So I saw virtual summits back in like 2015, I think, like when I first started traveling like the world and like left the US. After like leaving my full-time job and going full-time like on ZenMaid, I heard about virtual summits. But even at that time, they were sort of like the hot new thing, but you still had to do the entire summit using a tool like Zoom, and you had to sort of manage the entire.
Right. Like people are hesitant, especially like you said, when you're talking about SaaS or maybe different industries, they're more of the early adopter kind of personality where they're okay, like let's go on a Zoom and let's do this and learn more about how to market our company online. But when you're talking about, and I forgot the specific name of the people in that group, but when you're talking about those people, they're not very, I guess, triggered by such an idea that they want to go on there until it's been out for a while and it's proven.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's very much how our industry is. And so essentially recently, I think I don't know how recently actually, but it came to my attention through a friend who's also running his own like summit, that like I asked him how he was doing it, and I found out he was using a software to actually manage the entire thing. So that was why the timing made sense now that the industry consultants are a little bit more prepared technology wise. We've got relationships with them and all of that stuff. And then we have a summit software to manage the entire thing. And so that was why we sort of pulled the trigger on it. But essentially we have, I think it's 46 different cleaning industry experts. I think maybe 6 to 7 of them are like either ZenMaid customers, so they're not really like consulting or doing anything like that, and then a couple more ZenMaid team members. So it's probably closer to 30 or 35 like industry experts and consultants that are all speaking over a 5-day period, and that actually is in 6 days is when that like kicks off. And yeah, we've never seen anything like it in terms of buzz. That the number of shares that we're getting on that event is just unlike any marketing campaign we've done in the past.
That's really awesome. Now, all the companies that you're targeting, they typically have more than one employee, correct?
Yes, they tend to have anywhere from 3 to 15 to 20 employees would be like our sort of target.
Okay, very cool. Now, how do you essentially, and I don't know if you're in the position to be running the campaigns yourself, or if you have someone else. I don't know how big the team is, but how does ZenMaid leverage data that it's getting from all these marketing campaigns that it's has been running for 6 years? How do you leverage that data to kind of shape something out of it?
So what's interesting for me, this probably isn't the best response, but I don't really look at the data all that much. That I've always taken a very sort of qualitative approach, that I think that a lot of things to me are worthwhile if you even get one like customer out of them and stuff. And so I don't actually look at the data all that much. I do have a consultant who does like analyze our numbers and stuff like that, but I really just take the approach of just trying to be everywhere, like I'm like, we're just trying to be everywhere. And as long as we know that we're getting to the right people, like we don't focus on the numbers. I would say anywhere near as much as we should, but like I said, like I've hired someone to address that weakness because I'm just not very data driven.
Okay, very cool. Now, in the 6 years that have passed, what's been one of the most challenging things that you've come across as you grow your SaaS company?
So I'm non-technical, that I do not do any of the coding myself. I haven't from the beginning, and so that has become more of a challenge, particularly as we've had to deal with technical debt and everything. So I actually spent about 60 days learning to code last year to get a better idea of just like figuring out like what I don't know, like what I don't know that I don't know, and that sort of stuff. Because about 2 years ago, we took a new redesign live that went horribly like wrong, and we've managed to recover from that. So that's probably been the biggest challenge, I would say. Yeah, everything else just seems to be sort of moving along. We have little challenges in every part of the business, like I'm sure every SaaS founder is used to. But on the product side, that was a glaring weakness for the first like couple of years, just because I didn't have the in-depth knowledge to be making some of the decisions that I was about the product.
So for anyone that's listening that isn't necessarily technical savvy, um, do you think it's important for them to at least have some sort of understanding so that they can make those sort of decisions? Should they get, a crash course on coding? Should they, get a consultant to really just understand more of the lingo?
Yeah, I think that I would say the answer to that question is yes. How you do it is up to you and depends on your level and what's important. Because if you've been running your company for less than 6 months, you probably have more important things to do, right? That I'd sort of lost my passion for ZenMaid for a little bit there and decided to get into coding almost as a side thing, and it turned out to be one of the most beneficial things that I've done for ZenMaid. But if you've got the funds, bring in a consultant or a freelancer or something like that, to get help there. But at some point, even just getting an idea of like how all the data is structured and it'll give, at least for me, it gave me a much better understanding of not only what could and couldn't be done using like the technology, but also just by having a basic understanding of the coding in one way or another, it gave me a much better idea of like making suggestions where I knew this would take them 5 minutes versus recognizing when I was asking our tech team for something that was like a 4 or 8 day project and meant redesigning one of the features from the ground up. Because like first couple of years, I didn't really understand when I would ask a question what the difference between those two were.
Right. And I mean, like you said, it could be a huge difference, even if it looks like a simple thing to you, maybe it's not. So we can definitely put some people back, or like like something needs to be done differently. I want to backtrack a little bit and talk a little bit more about, kind of the beginning, because you mentioned that you've been running paid ads pretty much since you started the company. So how was that funded? Because one of the hesitations that you have, when you first started is, I know I can get traffic. Obviously, like there's ways to get traffic to my website and whatnot. But how do I do so if I don't have the funds to do that?
So I did like tech sales and marketing before starting ZenMaid, and I was definitely thinking about it as a funnel from day one, right? That just me focused on that was definitely helpful for us. That my partner really focused on the product in the very like beginning, and so I just wanted consistent traffic to be hitting the website. Like I knew we could get traffic organically, but I really just wanted like 3 people to be going through our funnel every single day. And so we just started out at a really low rate, that we started out literally, I think we paid maybe $75 to AdWords in our first like month, but it was just something that as a matter of principle, we always had that running so that we knew we were getting new eyeballs on the product, every single day. So I don't know, like we didn't have any funding. I mean, granted, we were both working like full-time jobs outside of that, but we just sort of made it like a must and just said like, this is necessary for us to build this company.
Is that how you essentially guaranteed that the traffic was higher quality by focusing on Google ads specifically, like search ads?
Um, yeah, so we did think that it was like the fastest path to cash because someone types in maid service software, we know they're looking exactly for us. So it was definitely a targeting thing as well. But honestly, I think that, yeah, like if someone new is watching this and is starting their own software, I would say it's more about a consistent quality, right? Because to us, it wasn't as important that maybe they were more qualified. It was just that we knew that we would be getting a consistent level of like quality feedback because the paid ads would come from the same channel, that we also knew Google AdWords quite well when we started. So that was why we picked it initially, but it essentially gave me the ability even early on to just try different things in terms of what we did on the homepage and like, just basic A/B tests, even though we didn't actually have the sample size to make data-driven like decisions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what are your thoughts on, this is, I guess, more of a personal question.
Yeah.
When it comes down to really building out your company and putting the time that it takes to do so, especially when you're working at a day job or something, what are your thoughts on kind of giving up, if you don't see that you have something that's coming to fruition anytime soon?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, I think that it's going to be a success either way, right? I think that every time you have a failed project like this, you like failed project, right? That it teaches you like a lot, and that can sometimes be mistakes. Sometimes it's not obvious whether you actually made a mistake or not, but I've definitely found that the speed of execution goes up, right? So for me, it's like if I found myself in that situation early on, it'd probably be taking a step back and asking, like, what would need to happen for me to consider this a success, and like how quickly, or if you're going to like move on, it's figuring out if maybe what you've been building can work for a different market. But the main thing is just figuring out who you need to talk to, whether that's a mentor, whether that's like a mastermind that you're part of, doesn't really matter. But figuring out who to talk to, and usually it's the customers. Usually it's like, okay, this isn't working, talk to a couple of the customers and see what they think as well.
Okay, very, very good answer. If you had, or actually, what's one big accomplishment the biggest accomplishment for you through ZenMaid? Like, what's the one thing that has happened, in the past 6 years that really made you just feel really good inside?
Well, so recently, just passing like the $500,000 a year mark, it's just crazy that, I can think back to 6.5 years ago, sitting on my friend's couch, that he's going to be at like my wedding later this year and stuff, and just sitting on like his couch and telling him, someday we're going to make like $5,000 a month, right? And to now be making like $500K a year is really crazy. But honestly, like I think that actually the Facebook group for ZenMaid is probably the biggest thing. That ZenMaid has a Facebook group that's just for maid service owners. We were the first ones to really do that in a big way and to build like a real community. And I know that there have been hundreds, if not thousands, of friendships between maid service owners like in our industry because of that group. And then some of the other groups that came after it or got big after it, some of them have been around for longer than us. Like that's something that, being on Facebook and being friends with a lot of my customers and stuff, that I see them meeting up, in Seattle, Washington, and in these other places like around the US. And it's a nice feeling to know that a lot of them were connected because of the stuff that myself and our team did.
That's awesome. Aside from, obviously, the friendships and the connections are some of the best, fruitions of having a community online or something like that. But aside from that, what's one of the benefits that directly come from having the Facebook group?
The Facebook group is honestly, it's so valuable in so many ways. Like you always hear online of talk to your customers. Nothing's better than having the customer community where your customers can talk about anything they want, and you can just be like a fly on the wall, or you can get involved in the conversation. So for the Facebook group, we get leads from it. That there was one year, I think 3 or 4 years ago, that we went to the industry conference, and in almost every conversation conversation, you would overhear someone going, "Oh, are you in the mastermind?" Right? Or recognizing someone for being like, "Oh, hey, like, didn't you have that thread about, blank or whatever?" And so it's definitely worked for marketing. People definitely hear about us because of that community. But then, like I said, there's just so many like uses for it. So it allows me to like test out content. It gives me tons of content ideas by just answering the different questions, right? Like I did like an Ask Me Anything a couple of weeks ago in there, like 2 weeks ago in there, where I just did quick video responses for everyone that asked a question. We used to use that main group for product feedback. We have a separate customer group now that we do for that. But I mean, yeah, like the last big feature that we added to our mobile apps, we posted in the group and said, "Hey, we know that you guys want this, but we don't really know what that actually looks like." And we had 50, 60 comments describing what people wanted. One of the maid service owners, her husband is a designer, and she was like, "Hey guys, like check this out," and sends us, and like she posts a screenshot to the thread that's literally an image of the ZenMaid mobile app with like the button, like added in. And she's like, "And then when you click this, then it does this." And it was like professionally mocked up by an actual designer. And those two photos had like 14 likes each. And so I just sent it over to the tech team and was like, "This is what you're building." And they were like, "What? Like who did this?" So it was amazing. There's just awesome things like that we get out of those groups.
That's really awesome. And now let's talk a little more about personal, questions when it comes to you as the, the founder, the CEO, and bringing the company, forward, obviously with the help of your team. So if you had one piece of advice for the SaaS founders or anyone that's looking to start their own company, what would that be?
Pretty much to just get started. I think that most people spend too much time like thinking and strategizing and like all of this stuff. For me, all of that becomes a lot more clear once you're actually implementing and executing. Even if you're implementing something that then 2 weeks later you decide wasn't worth it, it's still better to have spent time actually like moving forward, and all of that. So yeah, I think that's really it. And I think that's not even just true for like a new founder. I think that particularly if you're struggling with something in your SaaS business, I think that just get moving on it is probably the best advice. That I also see way too many people that because they're technical and because they're used to everything being sort of code and just like, if you do this, it will work. If you're struggling with your marketing, for example, don't spend 3 weeks deciding whether cold email is better than like Facebook ads. You have no idea. Just pick one and get started with it. Like take the easier one and get started with it, and then do the other one, and then you can shut down, or you can make that decision later once you're actually doing something with it. So yeah.
Very cool. What's one thing that you're not very good at?
One thing that I am not very good at: customer service. I am very, very protective of like ZenMaid as a product and stuff, and I really don't like like criticism of the product. Like I do, like I think that I actually like take product feedback better than most, but yeah, I don't generally provide the best customer service, so I try to stay off of intercom as much as possible. That I have people on my team that do that, but yeah, there's a term within the team, unamarifying, that I leave just like a note of just like, this is what I want to say to this person, and then like one of the support team members comes in and like makes it all nice and then like sends it back. So that's definitely my glaring weakness, definitely.
Okay. Now, to see the other side of things, what's something that you're very good at?
So definitely marketing. That marketing is definitely my biggest strength. That, yeah, I mean, what I'd actually say is, so marketing, just because I'm passionate about it and like I feel like I've been doing it like for a long time. But I think what actually my biggest strength is within marketing is that I take a look at a lot of different things that are going on in the world from like a marketing perspective, and I'm able to take a lot of like info product type marketing things that a lot of other SaaS founders would just ignore and find ways to sort of make them like our own. And so, yeah, I think just recognizing different opportunities from looking at very, very different industries and sort of different situations is probably the biggest strength for me.
That's pretty awesome. As far as companies go, what are your favorite, SaaS companies that you kind of look up to for inspiration, and why?
So Slack would definitely be one. That just because, I mean, just like the number of people that are using it every day, and to have a tool that's like that sticky and would actually cause like problems in a company if like it just disappeared like overnight. I'm really impressed by that. The other one that I hate saying, but I feel like I have to, would be Intercom, and that's because I have no idea what the hell I'm going to pay them next month, because they just change their prices constantly, and yet whatever they're going to charge me, I'm just going to pay it because it's such like an integral tool. And like, I'm just like, damn it, Intercom. Like, I want that for my SaaS business, but I just don't get how you can have like this poor of like a billing experience and still have my business. So I respect that in a really messed up way. And then the other one would just be ClickFunnels. That being a marketer, what's funny is that ZenMaid, we don't use ClickFunnels. I used it a couple of years ago and was not impressed at all. But it's very much a sort of watch what they do, not like what they say or whatever. And ClickFunnels, they've found a way so that they make money on every lead before the person even sees the ClickFunnels software. So that's something that ZenMaid is striving for. They have the balls to try to get you to pay them like $900 when you exit their software, when you're like, yo, this shit is not working for me. And they're like, here, pay us $900 more. And like, to me, I can't believe that they do that. So of course we're gonna try that. And then, yeah, I think those are probably the main ones. I feel like there's some pretty like big ones to name, but they're all just doing like things really well as companies that I really want to see ZenMaid doing in the future.
Right, and they're definitely there because they've been doing things right. So I think it's good to look up to those and, like you said, look at what they're doing. Even if it's in a different vertical or a different industry, it's always nice to understand how they're doing what they're doing and then trying to see how you can implement it yourself, because there's definitely ways to do it. What is your favorite book?
Favorite book? Okay, I say this every time someone asks, but The Fish That Ate the Whale, which is by Rich Cohen, and so it's The Fish That Ate the Whale, the story of America's Banana King, or something like that. So it's like it's a biography of this immigrant from back in like 1910, 1920, who essentially like goes to the docks in New Orleans, picks up a thing of like bananas, and goes from that to building like the biggest fruit conglomerate in the like entire like world. And it's a true story. And yeah, it's just epic. Every entrepreneur would really enjoy reading that book, and just the creative ways that he like gets out of trouble. And just, I read that book and was like, shit, I'm not an entrepreneur. Like, this guy's an entrepreneur. If I had to do like any of that stuff, I'd be working a job and like not doing what I'm doing right now. So yeah, it's a good one.
Look at it. And where can people find you online, Amar?
So that would be the AmarCanDream.com. So AMAR, like my name. And yeah, that's like the personal blog. I'm doing a couple more, podcast interviews and recording some more video content. So my YouTube channel, if you look me up like on YouTube, I'm trying to publish there a bit more. But yeah, and then the other one would actually be direct contact for anyone that watches this. If you want to drop me an email, amar@zenmaid.com. I'm always happy to jump on, 15, 20-minute call and just talk to other like SaaS entrepreneurs and stuff. It helps with creating content. So, yeah, you guys can reach me directly if you've got any questions or want to know more about ZenMaid or anything like that. And yeah, like Luis said at the beginning of the call, if you happen to be a maid service owner watching this call. I have no idea why you would be, but thanks for sticking with us. You can get 10% off of ZenMaid. Just drop me an email.
And Amar, last question. Do you have any questions for me?
One more time.
Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. So what would be the biggest challenge in getting this podcast like off the ground? I'm really interested in like, what were like your first like 5 to 10 episodes like? Were you just getting like no views like at all and just like stuck with it? Or did you have like any sort of early like wins, or like how did that work getting this off the ground?
I think one of the things that kind of helped was really making the right connections, right? So like Facebook groups and things like that, like trying to provide value at first, like becoming friends with people that are likely to maybe listen to it or watch it. And then also like posting in those groups that are likely to be interested. So for example, let's say you were interested in starting a podcast, then you would go to whatever group, depending on what the podcast would be about, find groups that revolve about that, and then ask people if they want to be on it. And then try to share with the same people, because if they said that they'd like to be in it, they're probably interested in listening to whatever it is that you're sharing.
Very true.
So just doing that kind of thing, pretty non-scalable for now, but overall, I think it's gotten some pretty good traction. So definitely exciting. And really the best part about it is, getting on here, chatting with people like yourself, with people that are doing big things and really, trying to change how things are done, because that's a lot of what SaaS is about, right? So really, really just connecting with people and finding more like-minded individuals.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. Too many people are focused on scaling. I think that's a good question to ask, like, as well as like when I realized that we needed to get to about 1,000 customers for ZenMaid, I was like, we don't actually really need anything scalable, right? We just need to hustle and like get there. So yeah, I'm sending like individual Instagram messages through like our Instagram account to get people registered for that summit. So, we're really taking a one-to-one approach.
Cool. Well, let's finish this up right now. And thank you everyone for being on the podcast. I really appreciated watching, I appreciate you watching. If you want, subscribe to the YouTube channel, join the SaaS AdLab Facebook group. Just look that up and you should find it. And thank you everyone for watching. And I'll see you soon.